Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Average Joe Squad from Remember the Hyphen, and I'm gonna be doing this video Adamless today. I got his blessing to go ahead and do a video on this, so I figured I'd go ahead and put a bunch of thoughts down on video, just about some developments that have really come out the last couple months or couple weeks. I'm not exactly sure on the timetable on this, but I'm sure most of you have probably seen or at least heard of how bad the most recent X-Men movie Dark Phoenix was. Me and Adam actually did a review of it, and we both were pretty unimpressed with it, with the editing, with the way the pacing was, with basically the whole movie we thought was really, really complete dumpster fire. But really, a lot has come out in the last couple months just about what really went on behind the scenes with the movie, what went on with stuff with how Marvel was playing into it, how Disney had roles in it. So I kind of thought I'd take a couple minutes to just really kind of discuss stuff that's come out that I've been reading about, and it's kind of interesting to me just because it's really just behind the scenes stuff from both ends. And of course, I'm not involved with the production. I don't know how true most of the stuff is. Most of the stuff that I've seen comes from people that were involved with the movie, whether they be in an acting role, a directing role, or somewhere in a production type role. But basically, a lot of stuff's come out. Now, even before the movie was in theaters, we had all heard rumors that they had to recut the movie a lot. Basically, that it was considered to be too similar to how Captain Marvel was, which me and Adam, I believe, even made reference to it in our review of it, that there were parts of it that were very, very similar to Captain Marvel or had kind of like a similar look or similar feel. Um, Apparently, the actual main villains of the movie were supposed to be the Skrulls, which concept art for them got leaked. I'm not gonna, since this is off the cuff, I'm not gonna throw it up, but I'll include a link down in the description so you guys can check it out. Basically, the Skrulls were supposed to be the villains. There was supposed to be this whole plot with them, and the biggest thing for me that came out was that Dark Phoenix was supposed to be two movies. It was basically they were gonna go for like an Infinity War Endgame style thing with it being two movies, like a two parter. Um, to me, hearing that made a lot of the pacing issues in the movie with the editing make sense, because basically it seems like they abandoned the two movie idea and threw everything into one movie, and that's why the pacing seems really, really off. It seems bad. The editing itself is not great in places. Um, but the main reason that I've seen is that why they abandoned the two movie idea was because they're sorry, I keep stumbling over words today. Basically, this was the movie was being made or edited. I just can't seem to find an answer on when this was going on, but the deal with 20th Century Fox and Disney was going on at this point, the buyout, and somehow Disney got word that the Skrulls were going to be the main bad guys of Dark Phoenix, and with how they were filming Captain Marvel at this point, um, Disney basically told them take the Skrulls out of the movie or we won't agree to the terms of the buyout. Which I know there are some that will probably feel like that might be an exaggeration, but some of the stuff that came out about how Disney was kind of trying to play hardball with Sony when the Spider-Man right situation was going on. It honestly makes a lot of sense to me, and especially if they were able to do this with 20th Century Fox, it really makes sense to me that they probably tried to use the same kind of tactics with Sony. Obviously, it didn't really work for them a whole lot because Sony kind of stood their ground on it. And while there is that whole deal with Spidey being back for one more movie along with one MCU appearance movie, um, I think that was mainly done because of the fan outcry about Spider-Man not being in the MCU and about how Tom Holland has come out and said that he directly was involved in trying to get that deal put back together because he knew how outraged and how upset the fans were. But like getting back to Dark Phoenix, this really makes a lot of sense though that if they were doing this kind of stuff to Sony, they exactly were doing the same kind of stuff to 20th Century Fox when the whole buyout deal was happening, and then with Dark Phoenix being, the last official X Men movie they were going to produce besides New Mutants, which is, from what I see, is in development hell right now. Is it going to be an MCU film? Is it going to be pushed back? Is it just not going to come out at all? There's a lot going on with that right now, and again, this kind of stuff's interesting to me, just because there's so much that goes into a movie that we don't, as people that go to the theater, there's a lot that we don't see happen. I can we kind of talked about it a little bit in the most recent Remember the Hyphen episode with talking about the Tim Burton and Schumacher Batman movies, and about how during Batman and Robin, Alicia Silverstone went through a lot of bullshit behind the scenes regarding the costume and everything, and that kind of stuff really is interesting because, as I said, when you're a moviegoer, you don't see that kind of stuff. You just see the movie for what it is, and knowing this kind of stuff could really alter your perception on the movie. Like, after reading all this stuff, I really look at Dark Phoenix, and it's like I was telling Adam, I'm kind of almost upset because I feel like if the movie had come out like it was intended to do, it might have been a lot better. I mean, like, I enjoyed Apocalypse. I didn't see First Class, so I can't really talk about that one. Logan was fantastic. So, like, Fox showed they could do good movies with these characters. And to me, it really makes more sense why they completely shit the bed on Dark Phoenix, or at least it seems like they did that. There was so much monkeying going on around behind the scenes that they really were kind of left with their hands tied. They had to put the movie out, but they couldn't put the movie out like they wanted to do. And I also found reference on Reddit. I can't seem to find the thread again now. It was buried somewhere in the Marvel at Fox subreddit. So I'll put a link down in the description to that subreddit. You can kind of dig through. There's a lot of Dark Phoenix related stuff going on. Someone recently posted one of the original endings to Dark Phoenix, which kind of makes a little more sense than what was in the movie, but it really doesn't, because kind of getting back to the original ideas, when this was supposed to be a 2-movie deal, apparently they were supposed to have this big battle at the UN where, all the guards would be revealed to be Skrulls, and Jean would show up and fight them and then go off into space after saying goodbye to Scott. And that would be the end of the movie. Whether that would be the ending of the first movie or the second movie, I don't know. Probably won't ever know until maybe somebody writes a book about this stuff and get some interviews with people that knew what was going on at the time. But honestly, the more I dug into it, the more my opinion on Dark Phoenix really changed. In that, do I still think it's a good movie? No, not necessarily. Do I think it's a good X-Men movie? No. But at the same time, I think that the movie we saw wasn't really a movie that Fox wanted to make. I think Fox had a really good plan in mind for how they wanted to end all these X-Men movies they had made. And, the whole behind-the-scenes deal really killed everything, because they kind of were left with, well, we have to cut what is basically an essential part of the plot out and, release the movie. But the problem is, when you cut something out of that movie that is so essential to the plot, it really leaves a movie that has no bearing and, like, no real plot. There's no real plot to it, which is what me and Adam talked about, was that Dark Phoenix really felt like, the cut we saw in the theater, it really seemed like a movie that didn't really have a plot. It didn't really go anywhere. I actually think I made mention as well that it felt like the cut I saw was a movie they put out just to be like, well, we can put out another X-Men movie. Let's just put out another X-Men movie before we have to give the rights back. But as I said, I'm almost a little upset because apparently there was another. I keep getting off on tangents about this, but it's such a complicated topic right now. Is that there apparently was another cut of the movie that was supposedly almost 3 hours long that was screened, but it wasn't the one that was released, and it hasn't been leaked or anything, and it has been released. It's not on the Blu-ray or anything, which really makes me interested to see, like, if they can ever release that cut, because I would like to see the movie what it was intended to be, at least. I mean, if I can't see the 2-movie deal they wanted to do, I would at least like to see the 3-hour cut, because maybe it makes a little more sense and it could serve as a really proper final ending to this whole X-Men saga that Fox had for so long. I mean, say what you will about the X-Men movies at Fox. I mean, they obviously had some duds with, like, X-Men 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, but they showed along the way they could do good movies. Like, the first 2 are pretty solid. Logan is fantastic. Days of Future Past is great. I know Apocalypse was kind of like a mixed bag in terms of how the fandom viewed it, but I personally enjoyed Apocalypse. I went and saw it in the theater when it came out. Um, the Wolverine, I heard good things about. I didn't go see it necessarily. Same with First Class. I didn't go see it, but for the most part, I heard a lot of good things about most of these movies. There were obviously some duds, and there were obviously some people that took issues with things that went on with the movies. I mean, especially with people that are like us, that are like comic book fans. You know, we're I'm the first to admit we're pretty gung ho about stuff that is, if it's like that in the comics and it's not like that in the movie. There's either going to be people that accept it like, well, it's a different interpretation, or there's going to be people that are like, well, this is stupid. It's not like the comics. I mean, I myself bounce back and forth between those two on a lot of different subjects, particularly with Spider-Man and the MCU. But that's a whole nother subject that I'm not going to delve into. But like I said, just everything that's come out about Dark Phoenix and all the behind the scenes stuff. I really feel bad for the cast, and I feel bad for the production staff, because it's clear they wanted to try to give the fans a really good send off with this movie, but it just didn't work out that way because of just Disney, not wanting the Skrulls to be in it, because that could be seen directly as a competition to Captain Marvel, which also had Skrulls, which featured a totally different look for them. And honestly, I think the one in the Captain Marvel movie is a little more comic accurate than the one that was for Dark Phoenix, but I don't think the Dark Phoenix one is necessarily a bad idea either, because it's just a different take. Um, but yeah, that's really gonna do it for this video. Just it's hard to really put into words exactly like all the stuff I've been reading about what the behind the scenes stuff, but it's really jarring, and it makes a lot of the problems with the Dark Phoenix movie make a lot more sense. It makes it seem that basically this wasn't Fox's fault entirely. I mean, I think they could have tried a little better with the editing, but I think at the same time they were probably on a timetable and they had deadlines they had to meet. But a lot of the blame for this movie, I think, really falls on Disney. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of how they acted when the Fantastic Four movie came out, the most recent one, the one that we all pretty much agree is a bad movie. Um, but, Disney kind of played hardball with that film, too, because right around the time that movie came out, they canceled the Fantastic Four comics. Kind of, it almost seems like they get a little upset if they're not bringing in all the money, which I know was a big deal with the Marvel deal. Sony Marvel deal recently was that Disney wanted a little bit more of the money, even though that they were making all the bank on it from the toy sales alone. Um, it just seems like when they don't get all the money, they get particularly greedy and want to try to play hardball and force the other studios to give them the rights back so they can get all the money. Which, say what you will, whether you support Disney or not, that to me, that's honestly a pretty shitty way to do business, really, is because not only, while you're obviously trying to protect your intellectual trademarks as a company, which, that's the proper way to run a business, I guess, but at the same time, when it comes to stuff like this, when you have such an intricate fan base woven in around these characters and around these storylines, you're hurting the fan base, really, is what it is. And, that to me, if you hurt the fan base, that's like a number one, you've committed a pretty cardinal sin, because those are the people that are really supporting the movies. Yes, you have the people that are the more casual fans that, they only watch the movies or they only watch the TV shows and they don't want to dive into the comics and they don't want to read any novels and stuff like that. And while it's okay to focus on keeping that little base happy, because those are, it's arguable that's where most of your money's going to come from, is the casual moviegoer wanting to come in and see the movies and then go home. But at the same time, it's also not a good idea to alternate your fan base that have been there for a long time, that are really, they're already set up and they enjoy the comics, they enjoy really everything. You don't want to hurt that fan base, and you don't want to insult that fan base. And with this, I really feel that as fans, we were really done a disservice by just the way that Dark Phoenix was released, the way it was cut. Um, like I said, I'm not going to totally um, put that Fox is innocent of their own doing, because the stuff I saw in editing, that was stuff they could have fixed. I've done editing before. Am I a professional editor? No. Do I do that for a living? No. So I'm not a professional by any means, but editing editing like I saw in Dark Phoenix could have been avoided with a little more care and a little more time. Now, maybe that was just because they were getting to the end of the movie and they realized it was the last one they were going to do and they just didn't care anymore. I can't really fault anybody for that. If I was in the same position, I probably would have done the same thing. But at the same time, I also feel like Disney really put Fox in the situation that it did, that led to this movie being released as it is, being basically so chopped up to bits that it's really just almost unwatchable as a movie in some regards. And that's really all I have to say about it. I really hope that at some point they can release this supposed almost 3 hour cut of this movie because I'd like to see it. At the very least, I would like to see it for interest's sake, just to see if, maybe the 3 hour cut makes a little more sense. Man, maybe there's scenes in it that add to the story and make it a little more rounded, make it a little more cohesive. That basically makes it make sense. But with how everything is going with Marvel right now, and with how the merger is happening, and how they're going to obviously try to reboot X-Men into the MCU, which is where a lot of this stuff with the New Mutants movie is coming in, because I've seen a lot of rumors that, and I don't even know if it's really a rumor because it was a news article, which I consider to come from a pretty good source, was that with New Mutants, when it gets released, they are going to not have any references to the word mutant in it. No references to the X-Men movies by Fox, because supposedly it's going to be released as an MCU movie. Whether they want to incorporate those characters into the MCU and then introduce the X-Men through that, I don't know. Because honestly, Marvel has kind of been closed-lipped about what they want to do with the X-Men for the MCU. They're a lot more focused on trying to get Fantastic Four rebooted, which I can't blame them. That's a series that the Fantastic Four deserve a good movie, period. That's really all there is to it. The last 3 movies, technically 4 if you include the Roger Corman one that never got released, technically. That series deserves a good movie. We, the fans of it, we deserve a good movie for the Fantastic Four. It's really kind of sad that we haven't had one that's really a great movie. Obviously your opinions on the 2 Jessica Alba-led movies and then the 2015 Fantastic Four movie aside, we really deserve a really good Fantastic Four movie that can knock it out of the park and really generate some renewed interest in the Fantastic Four. But I also worry about how they will introduce X-Men into the MCU. Mainly because of just, how are they gonna do it is what I'm interested in. Will it be a good take? Will it be a bad take? Will it be a kind of meh take, kind of like the first 2 Thor movies in some regard? Not trying to make anybody mad there. That's just my opinion on those movies. It's an interesting time for both X-Men and Fantastic Four right now, but it's not only just because of how they're going to reboot everything, but also because of just all the stuff coming out that was behind the scenes and what was going on with Marvel and their deal and everything. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in knowing more about what went on behind the scenes with Dark Phoenix, I really encourage you to kind of do your own research, do a little bit of digging. Reddit, say what you will about whether it's a creditable source or not. There is some very interesting information that surfaces on Reddit anymore, surfaces on the internet in general. It just seems like it all kind of collects on Reddit now. That's really where everything is. But yeah, I really encourage you to do your own research. There's stuff out there. There's deleted scenes that have been posted. I am not entirely sure if they are ones that were on the Blu-ray, if they were ones that got leaked just from, dailies or whatever. Stuff like that always is interesting to me. Yeah, I encourage you to check it out if you're interested. It's a pretty interesting subject, and like I've said throughout the whole video, it made me change my whole opinion on Dark Phoenix. Not to the point where I think it's a good movie. Do I think it's a good X-Men movie? No, but it could have been a lot better than it was. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I'm Average Joe Squad. Take care.